Hey guys, welcome back. Today we got some outstanding news. Glock finally innovated and they gave us a brand new handgun that really is a departure from anything they've ever done before. It's called the Glock 47, and as you guys know, I've been critical of Glock in the past because they've kind of coasted on their laurels for 30 plus years. Yes, they innovated with the original pistol, but they've really done nothing new in 30 some years. And the 47 really changes that, and we'll delve into why that is in today's video. So let's talk about the new G47. The gun looks like a conventional Glock, but on the inside, Glock has completely changed the game. And what have they done? This is pretty impressive. This is pure rocket surgery, folks. Looks pretty standard because it is. This is where the magic happens. All right, do you know what you're looking at? This is pretty impressive. I don't know how they did this. The engineering behind this is just stunning. Well, in case you haven't figured it out, they have a Glock 19 recoil system and a Glock 17 slide and barrel. Wow, holy cow. This changes the game, folks. This makes it a completely different gun. And this is all because of a contract by the Border Patrol. The Border Patrol wanted to adopt Glock 17s and 19s, but they wanted to be cross-compatible with each other so they could just swap their slides and barrels out whenever they felt like it between the frames, making it modular to a degree. And so that happened a few years ago, but finally Glock has decided to release this amazing new design to the civilian market and completely change the game in terms of handgunning. I'm being facetious in case you can't tell. That means I'm goofing around. Here's the Glock 19X. This gun has a 19-sized slide barrel recoil assembly and a 17-sized grip. This handgun, a version of it, was developed for a military contract to replace the M9 pistol, the M17 contract. It lost a SIG, and now it's just being sold on the civilian market, but it's lacking one key feature that the military wanted, which was a manual safety. So this is kind of sort of a copy of the military contract trials gun. Not exactly. So, what people have been claiming they wanted out of their Glocks, which is getting all the Glock people all excited about the 47, is being able to take the longer barrel and slide and put it on the stumpier Glock 19 grip frame. Let me show you what that looks like. Now, this will not work with Gen 3 or earlier guns. The 47 will only work with Gen 4 or later frames because of the double nested recoil spring system. There you go. Short grip frame, long slide and barrel. So what are all the Glock fans out there saying that the long slide and barrel gives you over the 19? Velocity and improved accuracy. Because we all know longer barrels increase accuracy. They don't. If you're using a red dot sight, the length of the barrel has no bearing whatsoever on the accuracy of the gun, especially in handguns. Now, with the sight radius, with that being increased, that can improve accuracy, but it's a handgun. It's intended to be used at handgun ranges. That means 7 to 10 yards, usually bad breath distances if you're in self-defense shooting. And so having this longer barrel tucked into your pants or to a holster just means there's more of it to clear when you go to draw your service pistol for self-defense. The Glock 19, in my opinion, makes more sense because it has a shorter barrel and slide, but they say it improves the velocity. Well, how much does it improve the velocity? Well, let's take a look. We have some Norma 124 grain ball, and we want to thank our friends at Norma for supplying the ammunition free of charge to the channel. Great ammunition. All right, so first of all, let's start off with the new G47. Has a 17 length barrel, okay? I'm going to insert 2 rounds of the Norma ball into the pistol, use our lab radar here, and I'm going to fire 2 rounds, get an idea of what the velocity is. All right, first one is 1,028 feet per second. And the second one is 1030 feet per second, okay? Same 124 grain ball from Norma, this time out of a Glock 19X, which has a 19-sized slide and barrel. It's a bit shorter than the 17, so what does that do to velocity? 1062. Now both have the marksman's barrel in them. This does not have the polygonal rifling. 1055. Now, I know what you're going to say. Oh, Mac, you're fudging the numbers, so let's just reach into the box and throw out some of the Norma ammunition and just grab 2 random rounds and make a mess. All right, 2 random rounds of the Norma. .1032, .1040. 2 more random rounds of the Norma out of the same box. Out of the 47. .1032. .1047. So, is there a massive difference in velocity? No, it just depends on which round you get and how warm it's going to be, but they're all within the margin of error in terms of feet per second. So there's nothing really gained by that slightly longer barrel on the 17. A lot of folks ask me, how can I get involved in the firearms business in that particular community? And one of the best ways to do that is to become a gunsmith. Every gunsmith I know is just overbooked with work. It's a very good living. And so if you would like to become a gunsmith, you need to go to a gunsmithing school or become an apprentice for an existing gunsmith. But Modern Gun School is an accredited college that also works with veterans in the GI Bill, where you can go and get a degree from accredited college in gunsmithing and then go out and start your own gunsmithing business, which I think is a really great option. Again, throughout my entire life, gunsmiths have always been able to earn a really good living, assuming they have a really strong work ethic. So please check out Modern Gun School. I do have a link in the video description below. So you can't really claim that the longer barrel and slide is going to give you more lethality, because it just simply isn't. With regards to the sight radius and the barrel length, literally, guys, we're talking about a fraction of an inch. So again, you're not really going to gain anything in terms of accuracy, and what you're going to give up is basically length. And that length, especially if you carry inside the waistband, is just going to make the gun more uncomfortable, a little bit slower to draw, and potentially get snagged on the way out. So there's nothing to be gained from it. I think probably the best Glock on the market would be something like a G45 or the G19 or the Glock 19X, because it has that full-size grip frame. You have the additional capacity of ammunition. It feels really good to the shooter's hand, but you have that slightly shorter barrel and slide, which makes it a little bit more comfortable to carry concealed, especially if you're doing inside the waistband. So, not impressed. What I would rather see is the Glock 46. And what is the 46? It looks just like the 47. Externally, you really can't tell much difference at all, but it has a rotating barrel system. And why did Glock develop that? It was just pretty much the same reason they developed the Glock 47. It was for a tender for a law enforcement contract in Germany. They had originally written the tender so that it would exclude Glocks for some reason. And so Glock went and completely redesigned the gun, gave it a rotating barrel, and submitted that for those trials. That's the gun I'd really like to see to come into the United States, because it finally changes the basic operating mechanism of the gun and tries to innovate, tries to be a little bit different. Because this handgun is really no different than the Glock they introduced 30 plus years ago. It just has a shortened recoil spring. Hold me back. Now, does that mean that this thing has a better recoil impulse, or a more abrupt recoil impulse, or more muted recoil impulse? I can't really tell. I can't. It doesn't seem to be much different at all. The only thing that we're allowed to do is modular swaps of the uppers, which in my opinion doesn't mean a whole lot of anything. And if you go out and buy a Glock 47 just because you want to do this, it just seems awkward to me. Will people do it? Yeah, they'll do it. But if you have the Glock 47 and a Glock 19, are you going to be swapping back and forth between your slide and barrel? No, you're going to pick the configuration you want, and that's just what you're going to stick with. So that modularity is something of a joke to me. It's not very modular at all. It's also worth pointing out that Glock has been out-Glocked by competitors. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you take a look at the DR920 from Shadow Systems, this is a gun that is heavily based on a Glock. Obviously, it even uses Glock parts. But if you take this gun apart, which we'll do here really quickly, you're going to notice that it has something that is very similar to the G47. And what is that something? This released before the G47. Notice this little perch right here? That's because it uses a Glock 19 Gen 3 recoil spring, and the G47 uses a Glock 19 Gen 4, Gen 5 recoil spring. Ooh. The point being that Glock was out-Glocked by Shadow Systems. All right, those things are going to roll around because the table's not level. Another gun that's on the market, and there's quite a few. I mean, Heck, even Anderson Manufacturing is making guns that are competing with Glocks these days. But here's the dagger from PSA, a fraction of the cost of a Glock 19. And you pick these things up right now for an amazingly low price. They give you a bunch of magazines and a nice soft case and all that stuff. And this gun has improved ergonomics, in my opinion. Now, that's very subjective, but it also will allow you to use various Glock parts and things like that. But this handgun is a gun designed for the masses. This gun is meant to be affordable and to be an alternative to those people that want to spend less money than they would on a Glock product, and Glocks aren't exactly expensive. But this has a lot of nice features on it, lightning cuts. You have the proper cuts in the grip frame so you can strip magazines out that are stuck, nice beveled cuts all the way around. It's just a nice handgun for the amount of money that you're going to pay for it. So while Glock is sitting back on its laurels doing a whole bunch of nothing and just kind of, you know, putting out guns that have one trigger pin, and then that replaced the guns with the 2 trigger pins, but the early Glocks only had 1 trigger pin. But then some Glocks had finger grooves, which were an improvement on perfection, but then the later Glocks got rid of the finger grooves. You get where I'm going. They're just shuffling the chairs on the Titanic as the ship's sinking, as they lose market share to other companies out there. And their lack of innovation is ultimately will catch up with them. Now, I know the Glock people out there are going to just rip me apart in the comment section that I just love bashing Glock. No, I love Glock. It's one of the best defensive handguns on the market. Fewer moving parts than most any other handgun out there, extremely reliable. I've never had a Glock cause me problems ever, and they're just outstanding handguns. But Glock needs to wake up and get competitive, because they will ultimately lose their market share to competitors as they sit back and manufacture the same gun over and over again for decades. If Glock wanted to get competitive with companies like Shadow Systems, which are out-Glocking Glock these days, they would do something like the DR920P that you see here. This handgun has a long dust cover, shortened slide, 19 recoil system in it, and a very effective comp that's on the end of the gun. A very interesting design. This handgun shoots extremely flat, has a number of different components that are compatible with Glock handguns, so you can put aftermarket triggers like that, things like that in this handgun that are intended for Glocks. But this is just an amazing competition style handgun. It just shoots amazingly well. Extremely flat shooting. Now, Glock has done slide cuts and ports in the barrel and stuff like that in the past. I haven't found them to be as effective as this particular gun in terms of taming recoil and shooting flat. So it'd be interesting to see Glock at least try to compete with its competitors. This is a Zev thing that came into the shop, and this one has a 34 length barrel and slide, so it's longer than the 17, but this has a 17 recoil system in it. So it's the same principle, right? You're using the recoil system from a shorter slide and frame design from the Glock series of handguns. So how does this thing shoot? Well, besides this trigger slap, it shoots. I don't have a 34 here to compare it to, but the recoil is relatively muted. Now, this thing has a ton of lightning cuts in the slide, so the reciprocating mass is seriously reduced. But yeah, not sure why I included this in the video. It's neat. Is the Glock 47 a quality handgun? Absolutely, without a doubt. Is it a good defensive carry handgun? Absolutely. It's probably going to work out to be just a fine carry handgun. Now, we haven't extensively tested the shorter recoil system, but that recoil system has been used in the Glock 19 for how many years now? So chances are it's going to work just fine. I don't have a problem, again, with Glock as a company in terms of quality, in terms of the functionality of their guns, all that stuff. Top notch, and they set the bar very high decades ago, and 30 years later, companies are still trying to outdo Glock. And some of them are. And that's the reality of it, because Glock, again, just kind of stagnates and doesn't really do anything. They just keep shuffling those chairs on the deck of the Titanic, like I mentioned earlier. But that doesn't take away from the fact that the Glock is an outstanding handgun. The Glock 47 is a quality gun, right out of the box, without any lubrication, without anything. The gun just works. And that's what I've come to expect from Glock. Now, you can take a look at the Shadow Systems guns, for example, and they'll tell you have to fire 500 rounds of ammunition and use a light recoil spring to break the guns in. I don't believe in break-in periods for defensive handguns. I think that's just shoddy manufacturing, in my opinion. And Glock's never suffered from that. Again, take them right out of the box, shoot them, and they run just fine. You can abuse them, treat them like garbage, and they seem to work. They're kind of the AKs of the handgun world. So for all you out there that say I just hate Glock, no, I don't. I'm trying to force them to do something innovative, because they have the capability. They certainly have the R&D budget So use it. Get out of your comfort zone and try something a little bit different. And I'm not talking about making an AR-15 Glock. Quit copying other people's work and start become those innovators you once were. That's my advice anyway to Glock. It's worth exactly what they paid for it. I don't think Gaston would listen to me. If anything, he just want to punch me in the face. But, you know, whatever. Glock, good handgun, Glock 47, another Me Too gun. The only reason it's on the market is because they're making them for a contract for the Border Patrol, and to recoup those costs of R&D, they decided to sell them to the civilian market, which makes perfect business sense. So I can't fault them for that. Why did the Border Patrol want such a thing? I already explained that earlier in the video. They just want cross-compatibility with the different guns they're going to issue, which does make sense, all right? So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Go ahead and light me up in the comment section like you always do. I'll read some of those comments, and if you make a good comment that makes a lot of sense, has a great point that I perhaps missed in this video, we'll make another video and talk about that point. In the meantime, if you guys like to support us here at the Military Arms channel so we can continue to bring you content like this, please consider becoming part of our Patreon family. There's a link in the video description below. Also, right here on YouTube, you got that little join button underneath the video player you're watching right now. Click that join button and consider supporting us here on YouTube in the age of demonetization. Last but not least, please check out Copper Custom. Thank you for 14 years of, well, let's make that 15 years of support now, and we'll talk to you guys soon.